I grew up in what you would call a typical American household. My parents worked a lot, but they always made sure my three older sisters and I had everything we needed. We were not a super close-knit family, but we never had any real issues either. Same went for my extended family. They lived a few hours away, so we would see them on holidays or during summer vacations, and everyone got along just fine. But as time went on, life happened, and we all just drifted apart naturally. I am 31 now. Back in 2014, when I was 22 and in college, I got a phone call from my mother that flipped my entire world upside down. I actually ignored the first call because I was playing video games with some buddies, but she called again immediately after. That was an unspoken rule in my family: if someone called twice in a row, it meant something serious was going down. Like, someone is dead kind of serious. When she called again, I set my controller down, stepped away, and answered. The moment I picked up, all I could hear was shouting in the background, like a heated argument was happening on the other end. It took a second, but I could make out my mom's voice. When she realized I had answered, she must have stepped into another room because everything went quieter except for her breathing. I just said, "Mom? What's going on?" And that is when I heard it: she was crying. I remember the conversation in bits and pieces, but she basically asked me if I had anything to confess about Emily. Emily is my cousin from my mother's side, and she is 7 years younger than me. That meant she was 15 at the time, and I was 22. I had not seen or spoken to Emily in years, so I had no clue what she was even talking about. I told my mom, "No, I don't know what you mean. What is this about?" She just started sobbing even harder, and then she accused me of sexual assault. Apparently, Emily had told my sister, who then told my mother and my aunt, that I had assaulted her years ago. She claimed that when she was 9 and I was 16, she had been playing in my room when I came in, touched her inappropriately under her clothes, and kissed her. I could not even process the words coming out of my mother's mouth. It was so ridiculous that, for a second, I actually thought it had to be some kind of sick joke. The last thing I remember saying was, "That is not true. She is lying." But my mom was not listening. She just kept going on and on about how Emily had described everything in detail, where it happened, how it happened. And then she started screaming, "Did you do this? Did you do this?" over and over again. I just kept shouting back, "No. No. No." It all ended with her putting me on speakerphone. Then my dad got on, and they both told me that they wanted nothing to do with me and that I should never contact them again. Later that day, I got 2 text messages from my sisters, both basically calling me disgusting before blocking me. I know this might sound weird, but after that call, I just went and took a long shower. To this day, I still do not know why. I just stood there for what felt like forever, letting the water run over me, trying to wrap my head around what just happened. After I calmed down, I started calling and texting everyone, even Emily. No one picked up. Those who had not blocked me yet did so soon after. The only response I got was from my father, who texted me, "Stop contacting us. We need to heal." That was 9 years ago. I have not spoken to anyone in my family since that day. To say this messed me up would be the understatement of the century. For weeks after that, I walked around in a daze, barely eating, barely functioning. It did not help that this all happened right before I was supposed to defend my bachelor's thesis. I was already stressed as hell. If it were not for my co-writer noticing something was wrong and taking over most of the conversation during the defense, I probably would have failed. Needless to say, no one from my family showed up for my graduation. Then came the absolute worst period of my life. For the first year, I was convinced that any day now, the cops would show up at my door and arrest me for something I did not do. I could not land a job, so I just burned through my savings, drinking heavily and taking Oxy just to numb myself. I also became angry. I mean, really angry. I would break things, punch walls. The only reason I did not hurt anyone was because I had no one left in my life to hurt. One time, my neighbor even called the cops on me after I smashed a glass against my apartment wall. When the officers came, I managed to play it off as an accident, and since I was alone, they left me alone. But the truth? At night, when I was lying in bed, unable to sleep, I was thinking about Emily. I was thinking about how I could get back at her. I fantasized about ruining her life the way she had ruined mine. Hell, I even thought about actually doing the thing she accused me of, only worse. I am not proud of that. Things only started getting better in late 2015 when I finally landed my first real job in my field. Work gave me something to focus on, something normal. It was not a quick fix, but slowly, I started drinking less. I even caught myself smiling every now and then. I started saving up again, and since I did not have anyone to spend money on, I spoiled myself. Every birthday, I bought myself something I always wanted: a virtual reality headset, a motorcycle, Lego sets. Last year, I finally moved out of my rundown apartment and bought myself a small house. Having a garage and a little yard to take care of was a childhood dream of mine. It helped me feel like I was finally making something of my life again. But I still have problems. I have been on antidepressants for the past few years. They help, but not in a happy way. They do not make me feel good, they just make the dark thoughts go away, leaving behind this empty, hollow feeling instead. My trust in people is nearly non-existent. I have tried dating, but I have only gone on 2 dates in all these years. It is hard to talk to people like a normal person. And what do I even tell a potential girlfriend when she asks about my family? Oh yeah, they accused me of one of the worst crimes imaginable and cut me off for a decade. But don't worry, I am innocent. I work in a very male-dominated field, so the only woman I really talk to is my therapist. She is great. I like her a lot. And then, a few days ago, I got a text from my mother. It felt unreal. I was too scared to even open it at first. I just stared at the notification on my phone for hours before finally reading it. Then, yesterday, she sent another message. Both messages basically said the same thing. Hi, my name, it has been so long since we talked. We miss you and want to know how you are doing. She went on to talk about my sisters and how my nieces and nephews were growing up. I did not even know I was an uncle. Know that we love you and always will. Love, Mom and Dad. The second message was longer. We understand if you do not want to talk to us after everything that happened, but please listen. Last month, your name came up at a family gathering. Emily was downplaying the whole thing. It got so uncomfortable that she finally admitted nothing ever happened. She said she probably just dreamed it. We were all shocked. We wanted to protect her, and we thought we were doing the right thing. We know that does not excuse what we did to you. We are angry at her. We told everyone what really happened. Your sisters want you to meet their families. Please, if you can find it in your heart, reach out. Love, Mom and Dad. So, my life is okay now. I am still standing, still breathing, still waking up every morning and going through the motions. But if you ask me if I am good, the answer is no. I have been on antidepressants for the past few years, and while they help, they do not bring happiness. They do not fix anything. They just take the darkest thoughts and replace them with emptier ones. Like turning down the volume on a horror movie, there is still something unsettling playing in the background, but at least it is not screaming in your ears. I do not trust people. Not even a little. I have tried dating, but in all these years, I have only gone out twice, both times with women I knew I would never see again. I do not know how to talk to people anymore. And what am I supposed to say if a woman asks about my family? Oh yeah, they thought I was a monster, kicked me out of their lives, and left me for dead. But I promise, I am totally innocent. My job is in a male-dominated field, so the only woman I really talk to is my therapist. She is great. I like her a lot. Then, a few days ago, something happened that I never saw coming. My phone lit up with a message from my mother. I froze. Just seeing her name made my stomach turn. It felt like a bad joke, like some sick twist in a story I did not want to be a part of. I could not bring myself to open it right away. I just stared at the notification for hours, my heart pounding in my chest. Yesterday, another message came through. They basically said the same thing. "Hi, my name, it has been so long since we talked. We miss you and want to know how you are doing." Then she went on about my sisters, my nieces, and my nephews, kids I did not even know existed. "Know that we love you and always will. Love, Mom and Dad." The second message was the real kicker. "We understand if you do not want to talk to us after everything that happened, but please listen. Last month, your name came up at a family gathering. Emily was downplaying the whole thing. It got so uncomfortable that she finally admitted that nothing ever happened. She said she probably just dreamed it. We were all shocked. We wanted to protect her, and we thought we were doing the right thing. We know that does not excuse what we did to you. We are angry at her. We told everyone what really happened. Your sisters want you to meet their families. Please, if you can find it in your heart, reach out. Love, Mom and Dad." So, here I am. I have not answered, but they know I have seen it. And I am furious. The second I read that message, every horrible memory I buried came clawing back up to the surface. I do not want to forgive them. I do not trust myself to even be in the same room as them right now. A part of me wants to call them and unleash hell. To throw every ounce of guilt and shame they deserve right back at them until they feel a fraction of what I have lived with for the past decade. To drag my cousin through the same personal hell she shoved me into. The other part of me? It wants to just leave them in the past. Ignore them. Move on with my life. Stick to my routine work, motorcycle rides, tending to my little backyard. I have no friends. The only people I talk to are my coworkers, but we are not close. I called my therapist's clinic, but she is on vacation for weeks. And I do not want to talk to anyone else but her. So that leaves all of you, strangers on the internet. What do I do? Do I ignore them and keep going like nothing happened? Or do I answer? And if I do, what the hell do I even say? I used to dream about this moment. The day they would come crawling back, throwing themselves at my feet, begging for my forgiveness. But now that it is here? A text message feels so anticlimactic. It has been about 3 months since I last wrote. A lot has happened, some good, some not so good. First off, Emily is still a raging piece of garbage. About a week after my family sent me those messages, she reached out to me personally. I was not expecting it. I sure as hell did not want it. It was this long, pathetic text about how she had mental health struggles and had been dealing with a lot, as if that somehow justified what she did to me. She said she was getting help now and that her parents were supporting her. I did not buy a single word of it. I knew her my whole life. She was bright, happy, full of energy until that one damn day in 2014 when she decided to ruin my life. And now, suddenly, she was troubled? Now she needed help? The whole message felt like one big, pathetic excuse, followed by the shortest, most insincere apology at the very end. I had planned on just ignoring her and moving forward. But after reading that? I could not. I had to say something. So, I let her have it. I sent her a message saying, "You think your mental health struggles are bad? Try getting ripped away from your entire family for 10 years, being branded as something you are not, and watching your entire life fall apart before you even had a chance to start it. I am still trying to pick up the pieces, and the last thing I need is the person who destroyed everything coming to me with excuses. My parents and siblings may have been fooled, but you knew the truth the entire time. And you said nothing. You let me rot for 10 years. You are lucky I did not take my own life. I will never, ever forgive you for what you have done. Do not ever contact me again." She never replied. I know she read it, though. Maybe she finally took a hint. On the other hand, I did finally answer my parents. I kept it simple in text, but we ended up having a long phone call, a conversation that stretched on for hours. Hearing their voices again was strange. I used to associate them with home, with safety. But after everything that happened, they just sounded different. At first, I hated it. As soon as they started talking, every painful memory rushed back, clear as day. The last time I heard their voices, they were screaming at me, calling me a monster, telling me I was dead to them. I thought they would be full of excuses, but to my surprise, they did not try to defend themselves. They apologized. Over and over. They said they had been living with guilt for years. That, once they learned the truth, they could not understand how they had ever believed such a terrible lie. The hardest part was when I asked them why they did not believe me. Why they did not even hesitate before throwing me out of their lives. They told me they had struggled with it, but Emily made her story sound so real, so convincing, that they felt they had to protect her. I told them that even if they had doubts, even if they truly believed I was guilty, they should have at least tried to get me help. They should have done something instead of just cutting me off completely. They agreed. They said they knew that now. They said they wanted to reach out years ago but assumed I would never want to hear from them. And to be honest, they were probably right. By the end of the call, we agreed to keep in contact. I am not visiting them. I am not hugging them. But it is a start. There is still so much anger inside me. So much pain. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like maybe, just maybe, I am heading towards something better. So, it has been about 4 or 5 months since my last update, and things have changed, some for the better, some not. First off, let me just say this, Emily is still a massive piece of garbage. A week after my family first reached out, she had the audacity to send me a long message. A full-blown apology, if you could even call it that. She wrote about how she had been struggling mentally, about how she had issues she had been dealing with for years. She tried to make it sound like she had been sick or confused, as if that somehow justified what she did to me. She claimed she was getting help now, that her parents were supporting her through it. Honestly? It sounded like complete bullshit. I knew her. I grew up with her. She was fine. A normal, happy, cheerful kid right up until the day she turned my entire world upside down. And now, suddenly, she had problems? The message reeked of excuses, and the worst part? Her actual apology was only a few sentences at the very end. I had originally planned to just ignore her. But after reading that? I could not. I sent her one final message. You think your mental health struggles are bad? Try being cut off from your entire family for 10 years. Try being treated like a monster for something you never did. Try having your entire life torn apart before it even had a chance to begin. You let me rot. My parents and sisters may have been fooled, but you knew the truth the entire time. And you did nothing. You watched my life fall apart, and you stayed silent. You are lucky I did not take my own life because of what you did. I will never forgive you. Do not ever contact me again. She never replied. I know she read it, though. Maybe, just maybe, she finally understood. Now, the big news, I actually went to see my parents. Yeah. I know. I had not planned on it, but the more we talked, the more it just happened. They also completely cut contact with Emily, which, honestly, felt like justice in its own way. She does not deserve a family. She deserves to feel what I felt for all those years. Seeing my parents in person after all this time was weird. I was expecting hate to take over, to make me bitter, but instead? I felt relieved. Is that strange? Maybe it was because, for the first time in a long time, things felt normal again. Like maybe, just maybe, my life was getting back on track. I did not hug them when I first got there. I just sat down and let them talk. The conversation was rough. I did not mean to tear into them, but I had to. I had to make them understand how much damage they had done. At some point, my mom broke down crying. When I told them about my lowest moments, the nights when I thought about ending it all, she just sobbed. They told me they knew they could never undo the past, but they wanted to move forward. To rebuild. They even invited me to come home for Christmas, to meet the rest of the family. I told them I am not ready for that. Maybe someday, but not yet. I am still conflicted. But I will say this, the hate I carried for so long is starting to fade. And for the first time in a decade, I do not feel like I am carrying this weight alone. I have even started dating again. Met someone recently. She is amazing. We are taking things slow, but I actually feel something for the first time in years. Life is not perfect, but it is getting better. I do not know what the next 10 years will bring, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like things are finally moving in the right direction. To anyone reading this, if you are going through something similar, if you are holding on to anger, pain, betrayal, just know that things do get better. Even if it takes 10 years.